Buenas and half a day, everyone. This informational hearing by the Committee on Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens is hereby called to order. Today is February 26, 2021, Friday, and the time now is 9:11 a.m. For the record, and in accordance with Section 8107 of Chapter 8, 5 GCA, public hearing notices were sent on Friday, February 19, 2021, adhering to the 5 working day notice, and a second public notice on Wednesday, February 24, 2021, 48 hours prior to this hearing. In addition, this informational hearing was noticed on the Guam Legislature website at guamlegislature.org. Joining me here this morning, my Vice Chair on Air Transportation, Tourism, and the Parks, Vice Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes, as well as Senator Chris Dueñas and Senator Joanne Brown. Sidious Masi, colleagues, for joining me. And for the record, we are at this moment not broadcasting live, but this is being recorded to be played at another date. We apologize for the technical difficulties and appreciate everyone's patience getting started. Before we proceed with the discussion of items on our agenda, I'd first like to set out some general rules of conduct for everyone in attendance. The chair will invite individuals who have signed up to testify. Individuals testifying, we ask that you please state your name and your position before speaking for the record. The order of questioning will begin with our panel of senators here, and each member will be allowed to pose questions in a round on each of the agenda items today. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance and nature of our agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of this rule of conduct will result in removal from the public hearing room. So Sidious Masi, everyone, for following our rules today in advance. We will continue with the items on our agenda. First is the management and operations of inventory properties of the Department of Parks and Recreation. Buenas again, everyone, and this informational hearing with the Department of Parks and Recreation will serve as an avenue for this branch to receive updates on the status of properties under the inventory of DPR and how they are managed, maintained, and operated. I'd like to thank, of course, our DPR Director, Gsa Contracts, and his team for making the time to participate today. In our audience, we also have the Deputy Director, Victor Villagomez, Christine Ocaril, the AO, as well as Pedro Lizama, our Parks Officer. My colleagues, our parks are an important part of our island and our culture. They provide a tangible reflection of the quality of life in our community, especially during the course of this pandemic. Our parks provide gathering places for our families and social groups, as well as for individuals of all ages and economic status. Throughout the pandemic, we saw just how much our parks mean for our families, who found them as places of solace and enjoyment in the midst of difficult times. And as we begin discussions on economic recovery, especially for our tourism sector, I do not need to tell all of you how important the role of our parks will play in our community and economic revitalization. But we also need to ensure the responsible management and maintenance of our parks for our people at home and not just for our visitors. My hope for this hearing is that we can hear from DPR regarding its ongoing efforts to maintain its properties and assets and establish ways moving forward to provide them with more support. Our discussion today will follow the agenda set by the committee, namely that the discussion will cover 3 categories of inventory properties. First, the management and operation of the parks. Second, the management and operation of our public cemeteries. And finally, the management and operation of the public pools. At this time, I'd like to invite our partners from the Department of Parks and Recreation to provide their presentation on the first item on our agenda, the parks. Then I'll invite my colleagues to ask some questions, and then we'll repeat the process for the next 2 agenda items. So Mr. Alcantara, please, you may begin on your presentation for the parks.
Good morning, Senators. Uh, my name is Gsa Contracts. I'm the Director of Parks and Rec. I've been there for about 7 months now. As far as the parks management, we have a total of 78 parks that we're trying to make sure that all of them are addressed as far as maintenance and renovations and all that, because the parks have been neglected for decades. And so we're here to see if we can get approval from the legislature to have additional manpower and probably the patrol of the parks, which is the park rangers. And that's actually what our deficiencies for, if the parks are not being maintained. We have a lot of homeless people that are in the parks that are messing up the facilities, and our park rangers are only there from 8 to 5. So everything that happens in the park is all after they're off. So I have my park rangers here. My park ranger, Mr. Pedro Lizama. I've got Mr. Victor Belagomez, my deputy, and of course Christine will be the operations and personnel and budget person. So if there's any questions, you can refer it to them. I also have the pool recreational manager, administrator with me, and that will come later, and also information about the cemetery.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director, and thank you again for the team for being here. So you mentioned we have 78 parks under the inventory of the department. Can you share with us how many of those parks are adopted, whether it be by a nonprofit organization, by the mayors? And maybe you can share a little bit about how the maintenance differs between the parks that are adopted and the parks that remain under your care and supervision.
Thank you, ma'am. As far as the adoption of the parks, like I said, we have a total of 78 parks. There's 15 parks adopted by the mayors. There's 23 parks adopted by private firms, private companies. There's 16 parks that are not maintained. An example is the park down at Pago Bay, which is called the Paris Beach Park. That actually was submerged in water, but there's still a portion of that park that is still under the jurisdiction of Parks and Rec. But we went down there and we found out that there's squatters down there. There's about maybe 3 or 4 squatters. And so I sent the park rangers down there to see what they can do to get that place cleaned up. And I think they gave them 2 weeks to vacate the property. The Parks and Recreation has 15 grass cutting parks, jurisdiction over maintenance, grass cutting of the parks. There is one park that was adopted by the National Park Service, which is Asan Memorial Park. And then there's 2 parks that was given by the legislature to public law. The one that's transferred to Jonia, which is Tagatsang Beach, and the Marisul Pier. We do have a contract for maintenance with JJ Global, and they're doing 7 locations. So those are the total breakdown of what we have as far as the 78 parks.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Director. I know one of the big issues that we've been facing with the parks is the maintenance contract for the restrooms and their renovation and upkeep. Can you share a little bit of an update on that?
Yes, ma'am. We have a contract for restroom maintenance and, janitorial work right now ongoing. We do have a contract that should be good for the end of the fiscal year. They are responsible for maintaining 15 of those parks. The 16 park that is not being maintained is the Padre Palomo Park. But all the 16 parks that were renovated, restrooms that were renovated, we do have a contractor to take care of the maintenance.
And why isn't the Padre Palomo Park included in the contract?
The Padre Palomo Park wasn't utilized as far as the park itself. There's homeless there staying, so we had to close up the restroom.
So it remains closed, that restroom?
Yes, it's still closed.
Okay, thank you very much. And recently in the news, we saw some stories about the playgrounds in the parks. Can you talk a little bit about that and the vandalism in the playgrounds?
Yes, the park equipment, playground equipment at EPAL actually is, it's rusted out. I had my guys go down there and remove the rust from the playground equipment, and so they already removed the one that's rusted out and repaired the one that where the two children fell in, so that's already repaired. So that's taken care of as far as EPAL.
Okay.
The other parks, we don't have any playground equipment on the other parks.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Director. I'll allow my colleagues, my vice chair first, to ask some questions regarding the parks.
Mananas, Roki, and to the team of Parks and Recs, thank you for being here this morning. I just want to note, you said that there's 78 parks, and when you were doing the breakdown, it showed that I think you only had 50, 20, 30, 38, 48, 53 parks noted. Was there a difference? I mean, is there any reason why from 78 you've only accounted for 53?
Well, we do have the, like I said, the parks that are not maintained, which is 16. That's part of the inventory list.
Right.
There is an updated version that's dated the 25th, which is yesterday. So I will give the panel
Right.
here the copy of the new
So,
one.
so if you can give us that updated list, we would appreciate it. I know that the mayors that have taken on the 15, right, 1-5?
There is 16 of them that
For the
are-
mayors that they have adopted?
that adopted no, 15. The mayors
1-5.
adopted 15.
Right, and they take care of the total maintenance and upkeep and renovation of those, right?
Yeah, they're supposed to take over, but sometimes it's hard for them, so we send our guys down there to. An example is Ipan Beach. We send our guys down there to cut the grass there. So there's various locations that we kind of like send our guys there just to make sure that the parks are clean and the grass cut.
Are there any other partnerships that Department of Parks and Recs works in with any other government entity to secure the maintenance of the parks? Like, take for example, like GBB or other agencies within the government?
GVB actually does the what you call the entrance gate for Ipaw and Matapang. They're the ones controlling the flow of people going into the parks. Now, as far as the government, the legislature adopted Plaza de España, and also the judiciary adopted Angel Santos Park. Those are the two parks that under the government agency.
So, Mr. Director, if I may, if we can just get an updated list of all of those, inclusive of all the government support that's being provided. The other question I wanted to ask in reference to this, because you are working on some renovations, is did you, at any chance this year or last year, get any CARES Act or any stimulus support for Parks and Recs? Federal grants or anything?
None at all, ma'am. The only federal grant that we have is the DOI grant that was used to renovate the restrooms, and the 3 basketball courts that was renovated, and also the Rick Nenetti tennis court. And also there's one that was a dog park that was built up in Dedido. So those are the DOI grants that we got that's already completed. The only remaining is the tennis court, and that should be done by next week.
So the Department of Parks and Recs has not applied for any requests through the administration for any of the upkeep or maintenance for the parks? Has not?
Not that I know of. The only thing that we received from the main office, the front office, is we have a rapid response team that we have organized, and they provided us money for equipment and also for manpower. And so the rapid response team, we're trying to get individuals to come into the department, but it's hard because of the test results that we're getting. So on board, there's 3 of them right now, and then all the equipment that's needed to do the maintenance of the parks, we've already in the process of getting riding mowers and bush cutters. In fact, we've got 6 bush cutters already available to us and 1 riding mower.
So that's just on loan, that doesn't belong to the department then, right?
No, it belongs to the department.
Oh, okay. So in the efforts, Madam Chair, the reason why I'm inquiring about this is it is our hope as a committee that we look if we need to support the efforts of asking for any stimulus or federal grants or monies out there that could come to the agency to support the maintenance, especially as it relates to the rapid response teams, and that would be helpful for the agency, because I know that in past years or decades ago, the Department of Parks and Recs had a stronghold of maybe over several hundred employees, and maybe I'm going to ask you now, what is your employee count at the Department of Parks and Recs right now?
Well, I can
Please.
have the AO answer that.
We have a total of 44 employees. We
44?
have
44?
44,
Okay.
which is only 33 classified, 11 unclassified. The 11 unclassified are the 2 unclassified, the director, deputy director. We have 5 limited term employees, which we are trying to classify them, put them in a more permanent position. And then we have the 3 rapid response that are only also limited term, and 1 temp. That's
So,
what we have.
Out of those 44 plus the breakdown that you've given me, ma'am, how many of them support the maintenance of the park? Is it just the 3 or?
The maintenance crew, there's a total of 7, I believe, and the 3. Or how many of the maintenance crew?
Right now, with the addition of the 3 limited term rapid response, we have a total of 13.
Yeah.
And then out of the 13, 2 of them is assigned to the cemetery for burial.
Right.
2 of them are assigned to pick up trash around the island. So we're left with, and one is assigned to the governor's office for maintenance of the governor's house and the governor's complex. So the rest of them are out there. So it is 4 to each group that's out there to cut grass and do maintenance. So a total of 8 to do grounds maintenance.
Madam Chair, if I may, just based on the information, I think it's important that I've always believed that Department of Parks and Recs is very crucial to the community as it relates for the welfare health for bringing our residents out. And I think with the shortage of manpower, at least for me, if you're only going to have 4 for each section of the island, having to deal with 78 parks, I think it's important that I personally ask Reverend Parks and Recs to see what we can do to see what other economic recovery resources we can get to help support the efforts, especially as it relates to equipment and additional manpower if necessary, because there are a lot of parks out there, and we'd like to, I mean, that's what we have to do in order to showcase ourselves to the rest of the world when we open up again, is to make sure that our parks are clean and maintained and the upkeep is there. So I'm going to stay really close, Madam Chair, and see what we could do to support the efforts of trying to acquire some kind of stimulus somewhere. And, you know, I know it's tight here, so what can we do with working with outside resources? As if I'm not mistaken, Parks and Recs has that opportunity to engage in getting additional resources from outside. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Madam Vice Speaker, for those questions. Senator Dueñas, do you have any questions on the parks?
Jesús Masi, Madam Chair, and welcome Director Alcantara and the team from DPR. The last time we talked to you was on a bill that passed to try to bring some help as well on the reserve officers, and but I like seeing you in person more. So welcome. I only have 2 questions. Director Alcantara, in your opening, you mentioned that you would like the legislature to assist you with the manpower issues, maybe along with your AO. Is that reflected in your FY22 budget request? Have you asked for additional manpower from executive direction?
They're not funded.
It was inserted, but then it was removed before the final.
Okay.
So it's, the positions are still listed, but it's 0 funding on it.
Okay, so it's not, it's
Yes.
an unfunded, but they're still in your
Right.
staffing pattern. Okay, so we'll have to, we'll have to reconcile that, because generally when we begin the budget process, as you know, when maybe you'll be here again, or I don't know if it will be Zoom or what the privilege of the chair on finance, but typically, sometimes we go agency by agency, and we start with what's requested from executive direction, and then, then we have to wrestle after we go into our own deliberations to see what we can do. So I just wanted to make for the record that currently the additional manpower is not requested. Okay, secondly, because we were talking about some funding sources earlier, I wanted to see, although I know that there has been quite an impact on the special funds, particularly probably your limited gaming fund that was authored by public law. I just wanted to ensure, even though I'm sure there's been a significant reduction because of the COVID situation, are you up to date in receiving whatever your portion of limited gaming is, collected for and distributed to Parks and Rec?
What is it? On the funding part?
Go ahead.
Are we up to date on our funding sources?
Yeah, so in other words, meaning has revenue tax and your allotment schedule for the release of limited gaming collections. As you remember, Director, I'm sure you're familiar, and the AO is familiar, that the limited gaming law basically takes limited gaming revenues and splits them in 3 between yourself, Department of Education, Department of Education, yourself, and also, I believe, I guess I forgot the other one right now, it'll come to me. But I know that you are in receipt of it. So is that current in terms of?
Our
the
funding
limited-
is, yes, it's
No,
all,
the
it's
allotment.
updated.
Okay.
We still have, Senator, unallotted balance from the limited gaming funds of
Okay.
$535,801.
Okay.
That's still there, but it's not allotted yet.
That was the question I was driving at.
Yeah.
So you have $580-some thousand that's allotted, but it has not been.
Unallotted
Yeah,
balance.
you don't have access to that cash at this time.
Right.
Okay, I think we're going to have to talk about that. Because, that if we're talking about your manpower needs and the issues, certainly, of course, the fund was created to enhance your capability of supporting sports programs and other things out in the community. But I don't think it's a stretch to say that, especially in this COVID time, your parks are extremely important because there's not a lot of contact sports going on right now. There's not a lot of close proximity type of sports. And I would have to say that families and other individuals probably for the foreseeable future through this year would feel more comfortable exercising in the parks, using the open spaces, simply because of the fact that, that would be the more appropriate while we're trying to stay, distance from each other. So I'm going to be talking more to you about that and working with the committee chair, because that's a considerable fund balance, and I think that can really enhance your operations. Also, the safety and security of those parks. I think that every once in a while we can revisit these funds and their intent. But I don't think it's bad for them to also backfill and support operations, of your manpower, especially in times like this, where you're still meeting your mission. Because you have to provide these outlets, to be available in order for sports and activities and other things to happen. So we'll discuss that some more, Director, and thank you for your testimony. That's all I have on parks right now.
Thank you so much, Senator Dueñas. I'd also like to recognize Senator Mary Camacho Torres, who's joined us. And I believe my vice chair has one quick follow-up question.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Director, I just wanted to ask something I should have asked earlier was the public-private partnerships. And I know that in the past, Parks and Recs had several programs as it relates to the public-private partnerships, and I wanted to see if there was any status updates, and do you have any programs to that effect now, as I know that even with the Paseo Stadium, many, many years ago, there was a strong support for that. So how, do you have any public-private partnerships going on today?
We still have the partnership with the Guam Baseball Federation for the Paseo Stadium. And of course, there's other entities that are asking to help Parks and Rec, clean the park, pick up the trash and all that. In fact, today, Arvis Christian is over here at Angel Santos Park cleaning up the park. And so an example also is the Boy Scouts that did the painting down at EPAW. They did the striping of the parking lot. And I'm in communication right now with the Japan Airlines. They want to do some renovation or something down at EPAW. So there is a lot of concerns from private entities that are including the military. The military every month they'll provide over 10 people to go along East and West Agania to pick up trash. So the private entities are concerned about the parks. And so, I welcome them anytime. And like I said, every day I've got phone calls to see if they can adopt the park. We just had an individual adopt the park up at Nimitz. There's a park there at Nimitz that actually nobody knows about it. It's been ignored for a long time. So now it's being maintained by an individual that's staying up there. I've got a company that also adopted 8 parks, and most of it is up at the north because a lot of those parks are just being neglected. And I've got photos of parks that you can't imagine that are there because they're all, overgrown, trees and everything, grass. So, but those are in the village, the areas, Dedido and Jigo. But we try our best to see if we can we just help them there because they maybe they're just overwhelmed with their their responsibilities in the village. But we do help them out.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Director, Madam Chair. Again, I bring that program and that inquiry up because I want to make sure that the success of that Adopt a Park and the public-private partnerships that can happen and the provisions are already in place to work that, see that revitalization and coming and engaging with the community to work closely with Parks and Rec so that we can assist. So it's good to know, and maybe after this we can continue to work closely with you and appreciate your response, your open collaboration with us to see how we can work together to get you that manpower, to get you that resources, especially in these trying times. So I think that has been one very successful program in the past, but I think we need to re-synergize that again and to invite the community. Because like you said, even as of today, there have been concerned citizens who want to come and help. And I must say that even with the program that you brought up with the young gentleman, I want to say Mr. Mark Chang, who is working closely with the Eagle Scouts, bringing in over 20 volunteers to help paint the parking lot at Paseo. I mean, that was something, that brings the younger generation up to the forefront to assist and help. So I want to say thank you for affording that opportunity to those students who really want to help make a difference. So, Madam Chair, I think that's really important that we continue to bring that to the forefront and have more Adopt a Park program in place.
Yes, thank you very much, Vice Speaker Munya Barnes. Senator Joanne Brown, any questions on the parks?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, and certainly thank you, Director Alcantara, to you and your staff for being here. I think we've known over the years that the Department of Parks and Rec has continued to be in decline with regards to personnel. Down to 44. I mean, you're less than Guam EPA, which is, considering the oversight that you have, is quite considerable. And as I've mentioned in previous hearings, where the government interfaces with the public, I'd like to see more activity rather than less. And certainly the work that you do in your park is very visible. It's something either people see the performance or they don't see it. There's other government jobs where, I can move a few sheets of paper a day and sit in my air-conditioned office and you never know if I'm performing or not. But certainly the work you do at Parks and Rec is very visible. I did want to ask, because it did come up, and of course we are hopeful that this pandemic is hopefully coming to a closer conclusion. But I know there were complaints that were raised, and gosh, a lot of pictures were sent around on some of our very public parks, such as EPAL, during that time that were not maintained at all, and the grass wasn't being cut, and residents were a bit concerned about that. And I just wanted to ask, since you're here, why was it during that period that the grounds, for example, at EPAL Beach were not being maintained?
It's probably because the manpower that we have, and not only that, but the equipment. We only have one riding mower in the department, and then, unfortunately, that the Guam Baseball Federation donated another one just a couple of days ago. So we do have now 3 riding mowers, and the EPO Beach Park has been neglected for a while, but now it's under my watch. It's being maintained. Prior to me coming in, probably, I don't know what really happened, but when I came in, the parks were all, kind of like neglected, and maybe my deputy can answer that because he's been there for over 2 years. Like I said, I've only been there for 7 months.
Okay.
So maybe
I
I
think
can-
it's a good question to ask, just because at the time,
Yes. Good
when
to
it
see-
happened, you know, and the
Yes.
public sentiment was that even though yes, we are going through pandemic, we need to be safe. But, you know, being out in the open space and the sunshine with, you know, all that acreage and it not being maintained brought up that issue of concern. So do you have an explanation as to why during that time our parks?
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Senator. Good morning. Victor Villagomez, Deputy Director, DPR. During the first lockdown, to my understanding, because I was detailed on a special assignment as per the front office, I was informed when I got back to the office that the maintenance crew had actually been, they were shut down during the first lockdown. So that might explain why the parks weren't maintained. And you know, when I got back, I had asked why the maintenance crew was shut down, because even during a pandemic, these places still need to be maintained.
Sure.
Because if they're not, they're big pieces of property, and if they're not, and they get out of hand, it's going to get, you know, it's going to take longer for these guys to get around to all the parks and, you know, get them back to tip-top shape and keep them maintained. So that's what I was informed of.
Well, you know, it's wanting to see the standard, and I recognize that you have such a broad mandate. And I wish our government, we would look towards performance-based budgeting so that we can actually quantify, depending on how much money we're investing, what can we get. I'm sure if we invested another $100,000, we could get a couple more park rangers. And I certainly will push for that with the budget, even though I recognize our budget is in decline because of our economic situation as a result of the pandemic. But I just, as I mentioned, I think where the public interfaces with the government, we need to have more visible support for that, especially for the safety and well-being of our community. And law enforcement, to me, I don't look at it any different between the Guam Police Department, you know, airport, port police, park rangers, you know, marshals, even though a lot of people think the marshals are living it up at the court, perhaps they are, I don't know. But I think we want to see that that presence is there so that people have safety and confidence, and also just the safety of the environment and the maintenance of the environment. And while we're going through a lull in our tourism industry, this is a wonderful time for us now to shine the product a little more so that maybe the repairs and things we need to address, we can improve upon during this time. Another challenge I know you have is vandalism. It's immensely frustrating, I'm sure, to do all the work and then, you know, the next day there's graffiti or someone, especially the bathrooms. I've never understood why anyone wants to break into a bathroom and take a toilet or a sink. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, they must be in desperate need for that. I don't know how you sell that on the black market. I have no idea. But can you elaborate? Are you still dealing with those type of challenges now?
The restrooms right now are being maintained by a contractor, Guam Cleaning Masters. So they have full-time people there.
Okay.
You know, so there should not be any more, you know, vandalism or you know.
Are they there? Like, do you have certain park hours? Are these individuals
Yes.
there during the duration? Like, if it's 8 to 7 or 6 or whatever, they're physically on the property.
The parks are open, I mean, the restrooms are open from 9 to 6.
Okay.
The only one that is not open at 9 is the skate park,
Okay.
which is up
The one
at
up in
Dedido. It
Dedido.
opens at 2, but because it's just a restroom that's not, you know, it's just the homeless that are there. All the parks are being maintained right now.
And so far, I'm sure you do spot checks and make sure that everybody's on their toes with that.
Yes, they're there. So, yeah, there's no problem with the restrooms anymore.
Yeah, I honestly have never understood why it's been that complicated to maintain these facilities. I have not, you know, in my mind, because, you know, with normal times and during our tourism industry, I mean, that was such a complaint that we were getting feedback on from our visitor industry and our tourists that, you know, these facilities, I mean, you can't imagine driving around the island not having anywhere to use the restroom, but the constant complaints about the maintenance and the appearance of the restroom. And it doesn't speak well for us, I mean, unless people stay isolated in Tumon, which is not what we want. We want them to come out and visit the island. when these areas are not maintained. It's always boggled my mind as to why that has not been possible in the past. So how long have you had this current contractor on board, and are you pleased so far with their performance?
The contractor is like I said, Guam Cleaning Masters. They should be, their contract actually is expiring at the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
But they are one of the, I can say that a good contractor. And they let us know what is the deficiency at the restrooms, like clog out drains. So they're fully responsible.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. I mean, I certainly will make those visits to see how they're progressing as well, just as a resident, and I think that's a very good step forward. During my last time here, I spent 12 years taking care of the Spanish Bridge Park. We'd go there twice a month. That was my contribution and my staff's contribution to our community. And just this time around, I don't know if I can lift the lawnmower off a truck as easily as I used to, but I can appreciate the work involved in that, because I don't have a problem the weekends, get my bush cutter and go out there and cut my grass. And people go, why don't you hire someone? I said, well, because it keeps me active. I fear if I wasn't active, I'd have health issues. So I recognize the labor involved in going out in the hot sun and doing that kind of work. I know it's not here and we're not going through the budget, but I certainly know when the time comes that we'll be able to see the breakdown of your budget and what you have for your personnel, what you have for your contractors, and what's involved in that. But I agree with certainly Senator Chris. I mean, the unallotted funds we should look at. I mean, that money's sitting there and it's money that's intended for your operations. And if there's a need to adjust it from the original designated purpose, I mean, it's very easy to do that. It's not, people think legislation is such a complicated process. It really isn't. I mean, if we wanted to make things happen like that and change the law, we could very easily change it and modify it. If there's something more pressing, if it's money that can be put towards park rangers or other resources that are more pressing that you need in the budget year, that can be done. And because your operations have gotten so small, yet your mandate's so big, I'm sure it'll be very easy to account where that money is and where it's going and what can be delivered. That's why I said I wish we had performance-based budgeting, so that you can also tell us, Guam legislature, if you give us X amount of dollars, this is what we can provide this upcoming fiscal year. This is what we can deliver. Rather than we throw you so many mandates and then we can complain as to why you're not meeting any of them. And it's good also when you're doing your presentation of defining, I have X amount of people that maintain these amount of parks, this amount of acreage we have. If you want me to maintain another, 200 acres, well, then this is the resources that I need, so that we can actually quantify it and demonstrate to the public as well that, you're maximizing the dollars that are being invested in your department. So I hope in your own mindset, when you are asking for additional resources, every department director is going to come to us and say, oh, I want more money. I've heard it for years. But what is also very beneficial is seeing your direction, that you can demonstrate what you're able to do with what you have, and then saying, well, if I'm asking for an additional amount, this is what I can provide. Because I know money's tight, but I'd rather see it where I can actually see the progress or improvement, rather than just throwing money into an endless pot and every year to the next year nothing changes, other than the fact that we're putting more money into one thing, but the delivery at the other end is not there, and it's not something tangible that our people can see. So thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to ask questions with regards to the parks.
Thank you very much, Senator Brown. I would like to also recognize Senator Jim Moylan for joining us this morning, and ask Senator Mary Torres if you have any questions on the parks.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to ask, when the visitors industry plummeted and we weren't getting visitors, Governor Gutierrez was talking to us about how this is an opportune time to spruce up Guam. And so the Island Beautification Task Force under the Lieutenant Governor had several projects. I just want to ask, did that impact the parks and the maintenance of the parks to any degree?
Good morning. Yes, Senator. In fact, we have requisitions already done and sent to GSA for beautification stuff. But, and my AO can explain that to you, that it's been done, but we're just kind of like just waiting to see what happens with, our requisitions at GSA. So my AO will tell you exactly what we have done.
Well, we've already submitted over 30 requisitions for all the majority of the park's needs, which include supplies and equipment, and they're still on hold, including we have 3 open bids to continue the cleaning contract and all that. So we're just waiting for GSA to approve, and to present, we're still waiting.
Okay.
Since the beginning of the fiscal year.
Okay, that's good to know, because as you noted, about half of your parks are sponsored or maintained by others. So that seems to be a good model, and maybe the continuation of the effort by the executive branch, you know, as a lead also, and as a role model might be better for us, so that we actually accomplish what we set out to do by sprucing up while we have time, right? While there's no tourism and not as much activity. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, and maybe that's a follow-up item, Madam Chair, that we can look into to facilitate Parks and Rec. I have a second question also about homelessness. The fact that we have a big homeless population that is utilizing the parks as their places to sleep or to stay during the day, that compounded with the fact that maybe some of the restroom facilities are not up to speed, or there's none available, like at the Plaza de España. What happens then when there aren't restrooms? Are you also dealing with fecal deposits and urination issues at the parks? Is that also a health problem that we have to take into our hands now to address?
Yes, and you know, for all those restrooms, like I said, we have control over them now, but there's still homeless that are coming around, and I can send this over to the park rangers to let you know what exactly they're encountering out there, as far as the homeless.
Yes, so basically the homeless, when there is no restrooms available in the parks that they are occupying, they will of course find ways to, of course, use the restroom, right? So they'll go over to a bush, or they'll go over, to the rocks area or whatnot during the times that the restrooms are closed. And so, yeah, it does become public health hazard for, our patrons that are utilizing the park areas. We do what we can with the homeless, as we had mentioned in the last public hearing for our bill, the reserves. I don't know if you recall that, but basically, like I said, we try to get them the help that we know that there's venues for, but for those that just refuse the help, and of course we have to go through the criminal code for that, which is, of course, we issue the trespass warning, and if they refuse to vacate the premises, then we move forward with an arrest. So those are the two options that we basically use to deal with the homeless issues. Like I mentioned before, because of our manpower shortage, we're not there 24/7 to monitor a lot of the homeless issues that are going on in many of the villages, Derido, Agana, of course, being the main issues, but we also have parks in Tamuning and Tumon that we have issues with as well. So yeah, the homeless situation is a big challenge for Parks and Recreation and our enforcement out there.
Are you working with the governor's office and their new director, who is addressing homelessness as her main task? Is the governor's office involved with Parks and Rec in helping with the homeless situation also in the parks?
During the, I believe it was the initial lockdown. I don't know if you're aware of the encampment that was growing in Paseo, but yeah, so we had an encampment that got out of hand over in Paseo in the back shelter areas. We brought that up to the governor's office's attention because we were at the time detailed to a COVID-19 task force, which was, had a specific mission, which was dealing with COVID-related executive orders and mandates. So of course we could not focus on our regular park mandates because, we were under the command of the Guam Police Department. But as that lockdown started to wind down, we brought to the attention of the governor's office that, through the past director Birch, that, hey, we have this homeless encampment. What do you guys want us to do with it? Do you guys want us to move them out, and like I said, just go by the criminal code? Or is there a way that you guys can help provide social relief for these people, right? So that was able to be accomplished during that time period. Outside of that, that's about the only time that I can recall that we kind of got assistance with our homeless issues.
You bring up very good points, and I can see that you working with Parks and Recreation, your concern for the humanitarian side of it, for the need for access to your parks, for the greater good of the community. I can see that is I can just tell by the way you're answering that you really have an objective to get parks usable for the community and to address all those issues. And I think for the most part, many of us join you in that. We want to look at how we can, as a community, make our park system safe and usable. Because in these times where people don't have much money, the only way to really keep their families whole and to keep their sanity is to have access to activity and places that they can relax or, just have some leisure time or some time to exercise. And so having the parks be accessible, having them safe, and also safe from people who are also downtrodden, the homeless people. Because I know that even in my experience, sometimes running into homeless people is not a very safe encounter. I've had a situation where I was with a group of people and we were accosted by a homeless person and physically threatened to the point where we had to call for help. And help came, and we to the point where we had to just ask for help to get to our cars safely. I mean, that's kind of a very scary place to be when you're an able-bodied adult and you feel like you're threatened, that you may not make it to your car safely. So those are the things that I think many of us, that's the extent of worrying about homeless people. Not that we don't like them or we don't desire them to be in our space, but sometimes there are unsafe situations, and it could be mental illness, it could be substance abuse. We don't know what the situation is. But I would like to maybe later talk to you about how we can communicate better with the governor's office about what options we have. Because you're right about controlling the spaces. GVB oftentimes will try to get help from the police to move people away from the azotea or those historically significant places, so that they're not ruined by campfires at night or those sorts of things. But as soon as the officers leave, they return. So it's not anybody's fault. We've also had a lot of efforts to help these people get identification so that they can apply for services. And so there are different steps that we are collectively taking as policymakers. And I just want to offer you also, if there's ways that we can collaborate, because it really is now going to take more of us to address the other half of the parks that your division is struggling to maintain. And not necessarily through your fault, you know. A lot of it is also the fault of the community for abusing the spaces, you know, for not respecting the properties and not being reasonable in how they use it. So the blame and the fault goes all over because after all, we're responsible after all of us. But I think that if we could continue to work on those objectives of our administration to beautify our island during this tourism downturn, and also work with the executive branch on addressing homelessness, maybe there is a solution that we can help you manage better. Because I think that if anything, your area right now is such a vital component to the recovery post-COVID. You know, how people are going to get their lives back together, keep their health, keep their sanity, and maintain some level of happiness. I think that's what we're all looking for, just to live in some state of peace right now and happiness. So I just wanted to make that comment, and also just say Jesus Masi, and I'm sure we'll try to do our best to help you.
Thank you very much, Senator Torres. Senator Moylan, any questions specific to the parks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, just a few questions. Where do I start? Okay, so recently, right, we had renovations with the restrooms through the Department of Interior grant, and some of them look really nice. So I would occasionally visit Matapang Beach, right? The shower head works out there now, and there's a gate with there's a lock on the bathrooms, and so that's all good. But then we had some vandalism down in was it Talafofo Bay, the bathrooms. It was.
Yeah, Ipan Talafofo. It's we've already repaired all the vandalized dispensers there, so it's being maintained right now by the contractor that we have. The one in PD, which they took the shower heads and the mixing valves, we're just waiting for our PO to fix those issues there at the Fish Eye, which is called the Fish Eye Park, PD. But all the restrooms right now are up to standards.
Right, and I appreciate that. But our problem is a continuous problem, right? We fix it up, they take it down. It's like they might as well just wait for you at your truck with the part and just give them one and we'll put up one so you don't have to steal the other one. Yeah. We constantly go through this. It's unfortunate that we got thieves, man. we just got crooks that don't appreciate the parks, and that, I think that's where we can help your department, because once we get it fixed, we want to maintain that, and that's been continuous. How many times have we? The marble, or not the marble, the tiling in those bathrooms are really nice. I go in them when I visit the parks, is to kind of just check things out. I take some pictures too. But we need something else. We can get the federal money, that's fine. We can get you guys out there to repair it, and we can get the park rangers when they drive on by, that's fine. But we have this continuous problem. You know, a couple of years ago, we had these tour companies that come in, and they were just, fighting. Can you just fix the bathrooms? Our busloads of tourists just want to use the bathroom. They don't want to go to the mayor's office. They don't want to go to business establishments and say, can we use your bathroom? Because that's, we have them there, or we should just bulldozer the whole bathrooms down if we're not going to provide it, right? Get rid of the eyesore. So that's something I'm hoping with legislation we can address. But we also have other issues in our parks too, like Ipao Beach, that parking lot there between Ipao and Hilton Hotel. Those trees have been there since I used to ride my bicycle, and that wasn't even paved there. And now that it's been paved, the pavement is popping up because the roots are all coming through there, right? And then we see the little wire fence we got, separating the road from the park, and those posts are rusted
out, so much so that we throw old tires over it to try to protect some little kid from falling down and getting rust cut and tetanus shots. So the overall appearance, we fix our bathrooms, but the overall appearance of our parks, I think, really needs to be, these trees got to be trimmed so the branches don't fall and kill somebody, The parking lots have to be leveled out so when they get out of their cars, they don't trip, and it's a hazard. And we identify it as a hazard. We know it's a hazard, but yet we don't cone it off. We don't yellow tape it. And we don't tell the public, don't park there because it's hazardous. Because where else were they parked? So, and then in Matapan Beach also, we know the flooding problem there, right? That parking lot has been, might as well put tilapia in it, right? but it's continuous. Even during the dry season, there's water there because it's a flooding area where we park the canoes. That gravel there is supposed to be for the seepage of the water to go through, but because people drive their cars up there, we just compacted it, and that's why the flood goes from there and in front of the nice restrooms that we have, and the water in front of those restrooms are green because the algae is growing there as well. So the whole thing, again, we need to, if we're going to invite the tourists on back, and we have this opportunity while they're not here to really renovate, but yet we don't have the money. Right? So where is our solution? Padre Palomo Park, right? I go check that out as well. I mean, that's a great historical site. There was a school there. My mom went to school there too. But the bathrooms, I can't say for lately, but I knew they were locked up. And you peek in there, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's a science club thing to look at to see what's growing in there. But we got homeless staying there as well. But otherwise, that's a beautiful park. The scenery there is nice. There's a little bridge to go over as well. But I know in our tourist magazines, that's someplace where the tourists go as well to see. Statue of Liberty. Again, we got the sidewalks there, but they're all popping up on the sides. We had little lights to flash up into the statue, but those are broken off. We have trash bins there that are covered with plywood, but people still dump their trash there too. We can go on and on, right? And Fish Eye, I'm glad that's open, but that was closed like temporarily for a year and a half or something because the plumbing somehow can't run uphill. It's deeper problems than we really see. And it's no, I'm sure your park rangers identify it, and I'm sure you're coming on board as a new director and having all these ideas to do, but we need alternative solutions. We need to look outside the box, and there's a couple of bills there I think we should pursue to help you folks do that. I don't mean to do a lecture, but I just got to air out because it's been a pet peeve of mine for a while. But maybe you can help understand, identify some long-term things too, and of course we got the graffiti, continuous darn graffiti. It's not going to stop. And what do you see as thinking outside the box? What can we do?
Senator, I echo your concerns, but all those projects that, I call it projects because they're actually already identified as projects in the Land and Water Conservation Funds. And so those projects are coming up for instance, like the boulders down at EPAW, which is the ones with the chain, right? Those are going to be renovated, removed because some of them are already rusted out, and so that's part of the grant money that we're going to renovate. There's other issues as far as a lot of the restrooms have been backing up, I guess because of the long idleness of the restrooms, and it's just clogging up the restroom itself. So those we've got a contractor to go ahead and snake the pipe out, and so all those restrooms right now are workable, and all the different issues as far as like and I know about the paseo. That's the, what do you call that, the walking path, which comes from from the governor's house all the way down towards Paseo and over towards Padre Palomo. Yeah, those are all, the sidewalks, the lights that are there are all not working at all. But there is a project that's going to do that.
I appreciate it, Director. Thank you. And I know you'll do your best. I'm glad you're there. You got the energy to do so. But what I'm really looking at is public-private partnerships to work and assist you folks. Somebody that can watch over these parks over the evening, because there's some partnership going on to help your efforts. That once it's done, then it at least can be maintained and protected, so they can call the emergency when somebody wants to steal a shower head or just goes wild and damages and graffitis, things galore. So, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much for what you and your team do. So thank you again. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Moylan. We'll now move on to the public cemeteries. Mr. Director, if you need a moment to switch out your team, I can give you that.
Yeah. Go, Ariel and John.
Thank you very much, Ms. Okoro, and thank you very much, Officer Lizama, for your time today.
Ariel and Senators, I will have my property officer that's responsible for the cemetery, and also my engineer that's part of the design as far as the cemetery itself, and also for the new cemetery that we're proposing. So.
Thank you very much. And this is the engineer Ariel C. Avarola and Mr. John Glenn Taitigui. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. If you could please give us a short update about the status of the cemetery that we all know and are familiar with, which is the Vicente A. Limtiaco Cemetery, or commonly known as Tiguac. What is the amount of space still left for us there to utilize as the public cemetery?
Good morning, Senators. My name is John Glenn Taitigui, and I'm the Property Control Officer for the department. And I handle the burial request and the scheduling for Tiguac Cemetery. Your question is the space, what's left. We're looking at maybe 3 to 4 years span, which roughly about 600 burials left.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell us how many burials are you all performing a week, and give us an idea of how busy it is at our cemetery?
Okay, so we average about 20 plus burials a month. Roughly 200 per year.
Okay. And if I'm still correct, the cost per burial for a family to pay is $500.
That's correct.
Okay. And Mr. Director, I think you shared with us that, and it was public knowledge, that during the first part of the pandemic, we were waiving the fees for families. If you can tell us maybe how many burials we waived fees for during that time.
During the COVID, The governor actually waived the $500 burial fee, and this was from March 24th, 2020 to July 1st, 2020, which is 5 months, and the loss of the revenue is $34,000. A total of 68 burials from March to July, and that's actually what the parks have lost in revenue as far as burial.
Thank you very much. And during the whole time of the pandemic, we were still conducting the burials on a regular basis. The cemetery never shut down. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know that the Vice Speaker asked you when we went on the tour if there was any possibility of us recouping that revenue and bringing it back to the department. And I know that we both said that we would like to discuss further how we can maybe look at CARES Act money and speak with the administration to help the department in that way. So we are committed to working with you on that. And I know, Mr. Director and Mr. Taidigui, maybe you can share with us, what is the actual cost of a burial at the cemetery? Because I imagine that it is far more than $500 to pay for our personnel to be there and to dig the hole and to maintain the cemetery. Can you give us what is your rough estimate of the actual cost?
Well, roughly we have a flat rate of $500.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much for the cost for the rental of the backhoe or things like that.
Yes, I'm asking for us to take into consideration all of the costs for paying for our employees to be there, to rent the backhoe, all of that included, so we can understand what it is, the service that we're actually providing here at a very discounted rate for our families who would like to have a very dignified burial and providing that kind of service to our community, just to help our senators understand what is the true cost. If you have that number, or if you could provide that to us at a later time.
We'll provide that in a later time, Senator. The only thing that I can say is that the backhoe is from Public Works. Okay, it's a MOU between Parks and Public Works, so that we can utilize the backhoe and the individual that's operating it for the burial. As far as the personnel that we have two individuals up there full time to make sure that the burial is taken care of. So, 500 for the burial, roughly maybe about 1,000, for a complete burial. But we'll give you the breakdown as far as the total really for the burial.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Director. And I know that we also have some proposed properties for when TGUAC becomes full in about 5 years, as you shared. Can you share with the committee here, what are those proposed properties?
Okay, I'll have the engineer answer that.
Good morning, Honorable Senator. I'm Ariel Ebarola from Parks and Recs, the engineer. We have a proposed northern cemetery in Siva, in Jigo. The area of this area, the one we're proposing and make a feasibility study, this is the map, the one they give to us in land management. This is the area. It's a big area. We can do everything over here because I'm gonna submit to you guys in regards about the feasibility study of the area, how we're gonna do with the cemetery. And the area itself, because of the problem that we're facing, the area is in the northern aquifer for those sites. but we are advising everyone in regards about that so that we were going to meet the code. We are proposing in regards about the coffin to be sealed with the plastic so that when they are already decomposed, it will stay in the coffin. And also we make a two site within the creep vault versus in the land, in the ground site. So when we go to the ground site, it should be the coffin itself, it should be shielded within the plastic within that area so that the decomposing materials, it will stay over there. Whatever liquid, it will not go out to the ground. In the creep vault, based on my estimate for 1/4 acre property, you need only 100 creeps vault that you can make it. So the area of that one, as advised for $1,000 for one creep vault, I hope the people of Guam, they can make that 1,000 P for that creep vault, for the concrete creep vault. For the ground, there is no problem because it's 500 bucks, the one they are saying. Based on the TIGWAC, we can do it also over there, 500 bucks. But for the concrete, it should be $1,000.
I see. Thank you very much, Mr. Avarola, for that information. And I think it's important for us to note that now because 5 years will come very quickly and we need to begin planning for the next stages of where we will continue our cemetery site. So I appreciate that information. And I'll go ahead and let my colleagues ask some questions. Senator Brown, do you have any questions regarding the cemeteries?
Yeah, I do. I'm sure when we look at this site in northern Guam, I certainly want to get more information because even plastic does not last forever. I even know with all the efforts they put into constructing the new landfill and lining that, there's a hope, there's a lifespan, but I think we need to look at that further. And then we also need to look at whether or not ground burial is the option versus, as you mentioned, constructing the crypts so that we can maximize the space, because we've certainly seen, and I see from the aerial photos taken of the Nimitz Hill Cemetery, how much it's expanded over the years. How much area do you have left at Nimitz Hill, actual land space left at that location? The cemetery you have here in Nimitz Hill? That's what's remaining? And what's the overall site? What's the size of, how many acres is the entire site?
No. Wait, I'm going to check over it. The area of the property in Tigua is 62,816 square meters. If you divide that one into 4, for every 1 acre property, it's become 15.5 acres.
It's about 15.5 acres, and out of that you have 5 acres remaining?
Yes.
And when was this cemetery started? I mean, it's in my memory going to Nimitz Hill, it was always on the left-hand side of the road, but when did we actually start this cemetery, do you know?
This was back in DPW time, I believe, back in the late 60s.
About in the late 60s
Yeah.
or so. Well, I'm sure we'll have follow-up hearings on this issue. I don't need to get into too much detail, but I think with regards to the site location, that's something that we should look at. When you think about it, there are not too many cemeteries. What cemeteries do we have in northern Guam? I know there's a private one, but it's the private cemetery there are crypts that the family has constructed on that property. When you think about it, what cemeteries do we have in northern Guam at this point? Can't think of any others, right, that are of significance, right?
There's no other public cemetery.
I know they relocated the War Dog Cemetery back, I don't know if it was the 80s or the 90s, but that's my point. That's why I think we really need to carefully look at the site location. I understand that maybe where the property is, but long term, and I'm not talking 20, 30 years, I'm talking beyond the life of that cemetery. Is that the viable area. I mean, there's a whole bunch of issues that can be looked at with regards to protection of the northern Guam waterlands, and in the future that will continue to be a very pressing issue as development continues up north and the impact that it's going to have on our drinking water. But I just think that off the bat is going to be a legitimate concern people might have in looking at that. Granted, there is a need for it. I mean, at some point we may decide whether land burials are the option, or now we're seeing more families opt for cremation. But those are the bigger picture issues to be mindful of. With your current cemetery in Nimitz Hill, how do you address the maintenance of that location? I mean, there's been complaints in the past too, every now and then, that it's not being maintained, the grass isn't being cut. How often is that cemetery? How often is the maintenance and grass trimming taking place there?
Senator, we do have a maintenance contractor that's up there at the cemetery. They've been maintaining the cemetery for about a month now, and we still have one more month left on their contract. And I went out for a bid to get to do an additional maintenance of the cemetery. So the bid was sent down to GSA. The opening of the bid will be March 5th.
And how much right now is your monthly costs for having a contractor there?
Right now, with the contract that was given to us by GSA, the one cut, which is once a month, is about $5,500.
About $5,500. And prior to getting a contractor on board, was it your own personnel that were addressing it, or has it always been a contractor, or what's the arrangement been there?
During the time, it was being addressed by our maintenance guys, but the cemetery has been just neglected. It's overgrown, the trees and the grass and all that. So when I came in, I decided to contract it out because it's not really, our guys can't handle it.
Did you ever, in terms of when your personnel were taking care of it, quantify how many employees it would take to maintain, at least to cut it once a month? What were your manpower requirements for that?
It's not enough because even now the contractor that's out there has about maybe 10 people that are cutting the grass, and it's hard because they even with the 10 people they can only cut half of the cemetery. So that's the intent of the contract is to to continue the maintenance there, just also to include the removal of the trees there that are just so tall. And since the cemetery was really neglected, there's a lot of trash all over the cemetery. So that was part of my the scope of work that I put in to make sure that they remove the candles, the plastic flowers. It's just it was just a lot of trash.
Well, it's something in the development, and I know there's going to be not as much time in 5 years, but I definitely think that needs to be looked at in what will be allowed if you are to build a new cemetery, so that it will be, still, of course, meet the desired need of having a burial place for our loved ones in our community, but also how do we make it more functional to maintain? Because I see up at Nimitz Hill, there's like no standard of what you can put on a grave, and it can be a permanent marker, a concrete structure that's built there. There's no standardization of that, and it makes it very difficult to maintain. If you're out there, even if you have a bush cutter, trying to get around and maneuver through all those things, it's a very slow process. So I'm sure, hopefully, in the design for a new cemetery, and I'm sure if it's in northern Guam, I'd probably be a little more comfortable. Not that anything's guaranteed 1,000%, but probably at burial crypts than I am for more burial in the ground up north. But I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration because it's quite an undertaking. I mean, the private cemeteries, they charge a higher price, but they also maintain the grounds. And down the road, I mean, like we've seen in Pigo, one of our oldest cemeteries, you see how they removed remains and reinterred them in crypts to be able to expand, the physical location. Now, not that I see that as anything near term in our lifetime for the cemetery in Nimitz Hill, but I think forward planning and forward thinking is needed for the location and what should be constructed to facilitate public burials for our community. Thank you very much, Mr. Director, and thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to ask questions on this topic.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Duenas, any questions on the cemeteries?
Jesus Masi, Madam Chair, and just maybe two questions. So in 2010, when I was at the Department of Land Management, our survey division was requested to go out and look at additional property on your current footprint. Is this 15 acres inclusive of additional properties, or is this the original footprint?
The TIGWAC itself, based on the map, the one I have, that is the 15.5 acres property.
So that's original since
That is the original one.
Okay. Because I know that when Parks and Rec had come to us during that time, one of the questions was that there was the additional property, but the topography was such that maybe it wasn't going to be conducive. Was that the decision, maybe not to expand on your current area?
The side of the Tigwak Cemetery is a government also property, but unsurveyed property. I asked them if we can use that one. They said, we're gonna take a look at it and survey that area if you can use it. And the other side is going down, is a federal property. That's why we end up to use only whatever we can use in that property.
Okay, so as Senator Brown was saying, so the Jigo property is government property already surveyed?
Yes, it's a government property.
Okay. Yeah, so just maybe if you didn't get this briefing, Director, since you've only been there for 7 months, I'll just give you my history a little bit. So exactly what your engineer is saying, that you know, it was requiring land registration from because it's known to be government in Guam, but land registration, and then of course, you know, being turned over. But you might want to look, because I remember my guys saying at the time that some of it's feasible, but some of it, the topography will be such that it will be difficult. There is another proposal that they were doing, and maybe you can reach out to land management again, that there was a lot of land registration being done also down in Agate area. And there was some discussion on that area as well. So just for your further information, you might want to take a look at it. So you have, you know, a different options, but maybe reach out to land management again, particularly the survey division.
Yes, Senator. We actually took a look at the site up at what do you call that, Pagat, and it's actually right behind the race track. And so yeah, we went in there, and you know, I guess because the engineer's concern is the aquifer, and that's the only reason why he said that maybe the cemetery we can just fence it in and put cribs, you know. So that's the reason why we you know, we actually decided to do cribs instead of burial.
Sounds good, Director. Okay, I just wanted to put that out, maybe just for, to help you out, and maybe reach back to those guys again and see if what the other options on the table were during that time. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Jesus Masi.
Thank you very much, Senator Duenas. Senator Moylan, any questions on the cemetery?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Director, if you need a moment to change out your team again, we'll move on to the public pools. Thank you very much, Mr. Everallo and Mr. Tidegui, for being here today.
You're gonna answer some of the polls. Okay.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. I think we are welcoming Mr. William Stinnett from DPR. Thank you for joining us for our discussion on the pools. And now last term, we had quite a few oversight hearings on the pool, informational briefings on the status, of course, of the Agania pool and the Dedido pool. And I know there has been some progress made in the last several months and discussion about the building of a new pool for our community. So, Mr. Director, if you can please provide us with a general status update of our Agania pool, our Dedido pool, and any new pool to be built.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, there is a new Olympic pool that's going to be built at the site right next to the sports complex pool, and that's already in the works, and it's just awaiting the A&E contract, which is being handled by Gura, and that's they're looking at probably building that before the end of next year. So, and as far as the existing pool at Dedido, we did go out for a bid to get it renovated and workable. The GSA actually opened up the bid on August of last year, and then we said, the requisition was sent to them, which costs about $197,000 to get a contractor to do the renovation and the pool maintenance. But it was turned down. The bid was turned down because the contractor did not have a specialty license, and so they went to the second lowest bidder, and the second lowest bidder was $450,000, which I cannot afford. And so we requested that, that we rebid the maintenance of that pool. So we're in the process right now of rebidding the pool again. But in the meantime, I had my recreational administrator here start working on cleaning the pool and seeing what's needed to rectify the pool, get it operationable, and so that's what we're in the process right now. So I can waive the thing to Phil. Will.
I think maybe your microphone is not on.
Oh, good morning, Senators. My name is William Stinnett, Recreational Administrator. Thank you guys for the time today to, give you guys feedback on what we've been doing at the department. I've been with the department for about 6 months, and one of the biggest issues, main focus I've had was reopening the pool. So the Agania pool, we've drained, and to my knowledge, we're going to turn that into beach volleyball. So we're waiting on that to be transitioned over. With the northern pool, we've water blasted the deck, everything, cleaned out, drained the pool. The pool is drained, it's water blasted. We got bids for paint to try to get it painted. So right now after cleaning it out, we've noticed, issues that needs to be addressed, mechanical issues with pumps, drain out pumps. So we've addressed it with the director. We've put everything down on paper, and we've sent that out to GSA. So now it's just waiting for that to be appropriated. So hopefully that could get up and running, and that's where we stand right now. Everything's ready. We're just waiting for the funds and to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Stinnett. Do you have any idea of the timeline? I know we're waiting on GSA, but can you give us any idea of a date?
The pool is cleared out. We need to primer the pool and paint inside the pool. I've got 3 quotes from local companies, but they need a special order of the paint. So that's going to take about 3 to 4 weeks just for the paint to come in. There's 3 pumps in the pool. One's for the main slide, one's for the kids park. So those 2 are functioning, but the main pump that pumps water into the main pool, that one's down. So we have to order a new pump to get that functioning. There's 3 filters that need to be changed. Not changed, but just cleaned out with new sand. So I mean, we're talking if we start today, best case scenario is 12 weeks. I mean, order the paint and lights need to be fixed. There's electrical issues. So, I mean, best case scenario, 8 weeks, maybe 12 weeks.
Okay.
So if we start today.
Thank you.
Just in my
I hope
opinion,
we can move as quickly as possible to reopen the pool. I know that now our P-Corps status at this time allows for recreation in public pools, and I know our community is anxious to get back into that Dedido pool, so we're excited to see that progress and to see that pool reopen. Thank you very much. Do you have a comment, Mr.
Yes,
Alcantara?
my comment is that, you know, we've done our part. We've done the contract, the bids and all that, but, you know, it's GSA that's holding us back. I mean, like my AO mentioned, there's about 34 requisitions down there that we haven't, you know, seen that come our way. So, and a lot of them, you know, like the pool, the paint. I mean, you know, the paint. I mean, if we have the paint, you know, we'll do the painting, and so that's eliminating some of the costs that will be encumbering for hiring a contractor, and so that's the main concern that I have, is that we're just not getting our requisitions process, and most of those are also for beautification of the parks, and so I've gone through the channels and all that, so I'm just waiting right now. Okay.
Thank you for that,
Hopefully.
Mr. Director. I know it is a slow process with many things at GSA to help protect our government and ensure that we have a fair bidding process for every project. So we hope that all of those requisitions within the department will move quickly as well. I wanted to ask about the location of the new pool going to be built in Dedido. I understand that the funding for that new pool is coming from a federal source. So if you can share a little bit about why that area was chosen and how it's being paid for. Because I'm sure you can understand that when that news broke, many of our southern and central residents were a little disappointed to hear that we weren't going to have something in this area again close to the Gsa pool, or closer to our residents down here to enjoy, since we already have a pool in Dedido. But if you can give us kind of the thinking behind that and the reasoning of why that pool will be built in that area.
Well, first of all, Senator, the Gsa pool and the Dedido pools, they're not Olympic-sized pool. Mm-hmm. Okay, the intent was to build an Olympic-sized pool, and it was supposed to be built on the left side of the existing pool, but there's some caving in issues there, and so they decided to go on the other side of the pool, which belongs to Parks and Rec. We have the land belongs to Parks and Rec, and so that's the decision that was made with the committee, was to build it there. Now, there was also another issue to build the pool at Tizen, but because of the contamination of the soil there, you know, during the Navy being there, there's issues about PCD, you know, and some contamination in the soil. So that was not, and that was a report from land management that the area there now is not feasible for a swimming pool. So that's where they decided that we do have that land up there at the sports complex. So that's where the pool is going to be built.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Mr. Stinnett, yes?
Just to add one more thing, from my understanding, was a three-phase project. So there's the pool right there. So pipes and everything are already set up for another pool. So
Okay.
just make it easier to
It
build a
was
pool
all
there.
part of the original
Yeah.
planning, I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll allow, Senator Moylan, do you have any questions regarding the pools?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned the GSA contracts, and I know that you're waiting for the paint, right, and all. And the further delay, this means that what you did to prep it for the painting has to be done again eventually if it's going to be continuous. If the delay keeps on happening, right? You're ready for the paint, but we can't get the paint, right, and so forth. Which it still doesn't seem. Sorry, I'm moving too close to the mic off and on here. It doesn't seem right, but you mentioned the multiple contracts you have with GSA, Mr. Director. How old are these contracts?
Some of those contracts have been probably down there for maybe over 2 months. You know, most of those contracts are small purchase contracts. It's not big contracts. I mean, you know, it's 25,000 and below, and so you know, we've sent down so many of those requisitions that are, you know, small contractors. It's not the big contractors that provide service. It's going to be the small contractors. So what we did with the engineers was go out and get small areas where we want to renovate. Like an example, the trash cans, you know, with the containers. We send that down to GSA because that was for the parks, you know, to put the trash containers, you know, secure it on the ground. It's like, no, you need to put it together with another contract that's on the same location. Now, I don't understand the logic between putting a painting contract and a trash can contract together, because it's on the same premises. So those are the issues that we're encountering right now. We're trying to get all those, you know, those requisitions, you know, processed. So I don't, you know, I couldn't understand why I should be consolidating all of those into one. I mean, you're only going to get one contractor, and you're not going to be, you know, the performance is not going to be there, where you have several contractors that can do the work in minimal time. And that's the reason why we did all of those, you know, projects on small purchases. But, you know, that's the holdup right now.
I appreciate
And it's frustrating to go out, you know, and do all of those legwork and all that, and then you tell me that you can't do it because you have to consolidate it. I have to consolidate a bathroom that's at Paseo versus a bathroom at the sports complex, because it's bathroom, but it's just different location. You know, travel time and all that for the contractor is a different story. So that's all I'm, you know, that I'm concerned about. You know, the pool itself is just being delayed because now they're going to have to clean up the pool again. So it's just things that's really frustrating. That, you know, we're just trying to help, you know, to get all of this beautification of the island. You know, so. That's my concern.
I appreciate it, Director. I can hear your frustration, and I'm sure the public is frustrated as well, and possibly, you know, with your committee here. I would like to be working closely with you to try to resolve this as soon as possible to get behind you and get this done. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Senator Moylan. And just two quick follow-up questions from our last, one of our last hearings in the 35th term. I know that we talked about perhaps taking down the slides in the Dedido pools because of deterioration, Mr. Stinnett. Are we going to keep those up or take those down?
The slides, they're still in good condition.
Okay.
So the big slide is still in good condition. The kid part area, I contacted the manufacturer already. So there's parts that need to be replaced. But as a whole, we turned it on, the pump works, the functionality works, it's still intact, but we do need to replace some parts of the kid slide.
Okay, but
So
overall, they'll still
overall,
be safe
it's-
to use.
Yes, overall the safety is good. I've walked down the big slide, it's intact and it's solid, so there's no rust, there's nothing that's loose, but so it's still solid. Just the kid slide, we need to order maybe 6 or 7 parts to replace some, damaged parts on it, but
Okay.
other than that, it's good.
Thank you very much.
And I think, Senator, that was the reason why they shut down the pool, because of the public health citation for the slides. But, it's like Will said, it's working.
Okay. Thank you very much. And lastly, Mr. Director, at a previous hearing, we did talk about how you may be going to the Attorney General to help recoup some of the funds from the prior contract at the Hagåtña pool that was not fulfilled, and part of the big reason for all of our oversight hearings last term. Has there been any progress on that?
There's no progress as far as going to the Attorney General, but I did receive $32,000 from that contract that hasn't been encumbered. So that money is with us.
Okay.
And that's what's left over.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Director. And Senator Moylan, anything else? No? Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank you, Mr. Director, and all of the team at the department today for being here, for answering all of our questions, and for the collaboration to put this hearing together. We look forward to working with all of you to ensure that we keep our parks and all of our facilities under the department maintained and as safe as possible for all of our community and our returning visitors to use. And if there are no further questions from our committee members, the Committee on Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens hereby concludes this informational hearing. The time now is 10:59 a.m. and we are now adjourned. Sidious Masi, everyone.